Welcome back from the break, guys. Right now we have Vince looking at Soul Calibur.
Soul Calibur is a weapon-based 3D fighting game developed by Project Soul and produced by Namco. The very first game in the series was called Soul Edge and was released in 1996. Originally released in arcades in 1998, it was eventually ported to the Dreamcast in 1999 with improved graphics and several new features. Developed closely by Namco's Tekken development team, it was one of the few home console ports that outdid their arcade parent graphics-wise. The title brought many innovations to the fighting game genre that included a heavy emphasis on weapons and a unique 8-way movement system, as well as other eye-opening additions. Soul Calibur is widely regarded as one of the best Dreamcast titles and is one of the most critically acclaimed fighting games of all time. One thing I've had a hard time with in fighting games such as this one is following the storyline, seeing as everyone ends up beating the living snot out of each other in the end anyway. It reminds me of wrestling. There's no real reason behind the violence unless you really get into it. Over many years, I've learned that Japanese games always manage to have a storyline that is at least interesting if not awesome. So I thought I would do some serious research into the Soul series and try my best to decipher what exactly is going on in this universe up to Soul Calibur 5. From my understanding, it goes a little like this. A long time ago, there was an ordinary sword that was soaked with copious amounts of blood through the endless battles of its era, which caused it to become corrupt and become sentient, which earned it the name Soul Edge. No one dared to wield the sword, as it would cause the wielder to become corrupt by its evil spirit, and only the Hero King, Algol, can wield the sword without being possessed. However, his son, jealous of his father's feat, wielded the sword and was lost due to the corruption. Algol destroyed his son and the sword, to which then he made a weapon from the purified shards from Soul Edge, naming it Soul Calibur. He was sacrificed to complete the sword's ritual, which would then be protected by a cult, and go figure, Soul Edge would reform on its own later anyway. Soul Calibur would then be lost after it was stolen by a member of the cult named Zeselanol. In the mid-1500s, a Spanish pirate named Cervantes stole Soul Edge from a dealer's ship, but gradually became corrupt by its spirit, until it devoured his soul and started terrorizing the world for the next 20 years. This terror sparked several warriors to rise up and made stopping him their quest. A female ninja, Taki, who wants to destroy Soul Edge for having corrupted her master, and a German rebel, Siegfried, who desperately wants to blame someone for the accidental murder of his father. Siegfried came to check Soul Edge, but became possessed by the release of the evil seed, and turned him into the monstrous Nightmare. Nightmare replaced Cervantes in terrorizing the world, wanting to recover the lost Soul Edge shards. 3 warriors from Asia, Chai, Kilik, and Maxi, stormed the castle and managed to defeat him. Siegfried temporarily gains sanity again, but then loses it after a short period of time. 4 years later, Nightmare has begun his Soul Edge ritual in his old castle, wanting to resurrect Soul Edge. But his ritual is interrupted by a French nobleman, Raphael. Although Raphael is utterly defeated, he pierces Soul Edge, which gives Siegfried the time to break free of its control completely. While things seem to go normal afterwards, Zeselanol has returned to try and free both swords, intending to use their power in breaking his cycle of reincarnation induced by Soul Calibur. He manages to do so, and now Soul Edge's spirit has taken a physical form to become the second Nightmare. Siegfried clashes with this new Nightmare, but is wounded in the process. The clash of Soul Edge and Soul Calibur has awakened Algol from his slumber, who has risen to the Tower of Remembrance to wait for the warriors to challenge him, as they tend to do in these kinds of games. Meanwhile, Nightmare with his servant Tira want to gather the Soul Edge shards to complete the sword, force several warriors including Astaroth, Sophitia, and Voldo into servitude. Siegfried recovers and goes on his way to confront Nightmare for the final battle. The two clash for a second time in the Tower of Remembrance, where Siegfried manages to destroy both Nightmare and Soul Edge, seemingly once and for all. Another 17 years pass, and Soul Edge has reformed itself again, as does Nightmare. His former servant Tira does not accept him and intends to search for a new vessel for Soul Edge. She eventually finds Pyrrha, who has Soul Edge's power in her blood. She is successful in persuading her to attack and kill people who have ostracized her, but is confronted by a long-lost brother, Patroclus, who has made his life goal to find his sister and avenge his mother's murder. They are confronted by Nightmare, and Pyrrha awakens her Soul Edge powers due to being in the state of danger. Patroclus accidentally kills his sister, but is given a second chance by the Edge Master to rethink his decision and subsequently purifies Pyrrha without killing her. However, Patroclus is trapped subconsciously to fight Soul Calibur's spirit Elysium, as she is angry at him for sparing his manifested sister. After defeating Elysium, he goes on to pierce Soul Calibur with Soul Edge. Soul Calibur is a lot of fun when it comes to the practical side of things. Seeing as the game started out as an arcade game, the storyline was almost destined to be difficult to follow from the beginning. I think that the storyline would reach out to people better if it was maybe displayed as an anime miniseries or even a movie. Only time will tell. So, as you guys could probably tell, I had a little bit of a hard time understanding the Soul Calibur series initially.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit. I read through it and cross-matching things on the internet and whatnot.
It still didn't make sense.
It did after about the 700th
It didn't. I think that's denial. It still doesn't make
It
sense.
still makes sense to me, but like you have to read it yourself.
I think at the end of the day, what's important to remember is that it's a fun fighting game where you can beat everyone up, and who cares about the story?
You need a lot longer than 5 minutes as well.
Yeah.
Just saying.
All right, that's the end of the show. We'll see you again next week. Next week on Worldwide Gaming.